we are going to be doing some, basic definitions of some terms that you must have heard before. And some of these terms are the terms that you hear when people talk about blockchain. They talk about cryptography. You hear things like immutable, or you hear things, they say it indestructible. They say blockchain is indestructible. And then some of us will begin to wonder, what's the meaning of this? So we will try as much as we can to narrow it down so that even if you are not in the field of technology, you will have a basic understanding of what these things mean. So when we talk about cryptography, we are basically talking about a way of coding things, of hiding information, of securing information, let me put it that way. It's a way whereby you can secure your information. So if I'm going to send information from one person to another, I hide it in such a way that nobody have access to it except the destination. So when I hide it, we call it encryption. So when you encrypt it, at the other side, the person that this message is meant for would be able to decrypt it with a code or with a code, a password or something like that. So in blockchain, we use the term cryptography to mean securing data. And as we proceed, we also have a better understanding of that. So what does it mean when we say something is immutable? It is immutable because you cannot destroy it. It is indestructible. You cannot destroy it. Is permanent. So that's another word for immutability. Then we also say that blockchain is decentralized. So if you're not into technology, you'll be asking yourself, what does all of these things mean? So that when we are mentioning them, to make sense to you. Now, the easiest way I can explain that something is decentralized is when I can explain it by making us understand what centralization means. Then you can understand the opposite of it. So when you centralize something, it means that there is a major point of focus. There is a point where there's a shared area where we can all have access to, where we can all share things from. So for example, in computers, they talk of things like server. So the server is the one that holds all the information, and all of us, we go to withdraw information from there or to retrieve information from the server. So in the blockchain has been able to achieve what we call decentralization, meaning we are no longer using that centralized procedure. Rather, we have broken it down. We have removed that central personality, or we have removed that middle person there. So there's no middle person. So everybody is responsible for their data, as we will look very soon. And then we also want to define what we call mining. I will just be giving very brief, definition of these things so that in your own spare time, you will be able to look into it very well. So in blockchain, mining is just a process whereby everybody who is on the blockchain is able to work in a way that to acknowledge that information that is coming into that network is genuine. So everybody make their contribution to approve of that information. And so in the end of that approval, they get some reward that we're going to also be, looking into very, 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 very soon. So another thing, again, that would be of interest to us when we're talking about blockchain is what we call token. So basically, token is for security purpose, and sometimes we call them tokenized security or crypto security. So is a way where you take ownership of your own data. So only you have that token. You can look at token as a security code or something like that no other person have access to. It's just attributed to you alone. And then we talk about algorithm. For those who are in computer science or computer engineering, you can understand algorithm much more better. So algorithm is just like a step-by-step procedure to do something or to achieve something. So you are basically putting some codes together to achieve an aim. So I'm trying not to use too much of technical terms to define these things so that everybody here would be able to understand. Okay, then what do we mean by hash or hashing, as the case may be? I'll simply put it is a hash can be basically referred to as like a reference number for a block or in a blockchain. Like a reference is a hash of that. So when you say reference, it's like an address to that block. So every block in a blockchain has a hash. So you can take more time to, study more about this, but you are going to hear us make mention of things like this when we're talking about blockchain. So what is our focus today? Our focus is just to get to know what the blockchain is from the basic point of view, from a basic, perspective. So we're going to talk about the advantages of this technology. We're going to talk about how you can use this blockchain to benefit yourself, especially in business and in other areas of life, not just in business. This blockchain is beneficial. So most times when we talk about blockchain, many people attribute it to Bitcoin. But these are two separate entities. Okay, so what's the difference so that we can have an understanding of it? I'm sure some of us heard about Bitcoin before, and some of us heard about blockchain before. You'll be wondering what do they mean by all of these things? So Bitcoin basically is a digital currency. The brother that gave the definition of the blockchain said that is a way of storing digital data. Okay, so we consider currency to also be a data. Currency like your TL, currency like your dollars, currency like this. But now we're talking about currency that is digitalized. So there is a value that is assigned to that currency. For example, they can say 1 Bitcoin is equal to maybe $20,000. You hear things like that, $5,000. You hear of things like this. So these currencies are digitalized such that you can use it to trade for things over the internet, and it's acceptable, in many countries. So, but what's the difference now between Bitcoin and blockchain? So blockchain is basically the technology, or you can look at it as the bedrock or the foundation through which Bitcoin operates. Or if you are conversant with what they call operating system in computers, you need an operating system to make use of your computer. So on the operating system, you will have applications, various applications. So let's put it lightly that Bitcoin is like an application of blockchain, okay, that runs on the blockchain network. So that's a way to easily describe it. So we said here that is the technology that is used by Bitcoin, okay, to allow, secure, public, and anonymous transactions to take place. So it is public, it is secured, and it is anonymous. So let's go on and see what this blockchain is. I'll try to be a little bit fast because we have a couple of slides more. So the blockchain, we say it is incorruptible, like we defined earlier on. We say that it's incorruptible, it's indestructible, it's permanent, okay? It's a permanent digital ledger. A ledger, for those of us who are into economics, you understand what a ledger is. It's like a procedure where you store your records. You keep your record, like, for example, something like an Excel sheet. So you keep all of your records here. So we call this a blockchain as that digital ledger that is incorruptible. Okay, it can be programmed to record not just financial transaction, but virtually everything. And when we go ahead now, you'll also be seeing how useful this thing is in different industries. But what's the main purpose of blockchain? Why blockchain? Okay, because we have had previous networks before blockchain. Like we said from the beginning, we had the centralized system, which is still very, very in use today. Like if you go to most establishments in banks, in different industries today, they still make use of the centralized system. But there is a major problem in the centralized system that the blockchain wants to solve. What is that problem? Is the problem of, we call it single point of failure. So the single point of failure is that if that server crash, then the whole system is down. So you consider the server as one computer that every other computer depends on. For example, most of us use routers in the house. If your router crashes, or if light goes off from your router, your phone, your laptop gets disconnected from the internet. So we can look at that router as a server. just as an example. So what is blockchain trying to do? Is trying to remove that responsibility from your router so that your phone, your laptop, everybody's responsible for its internet. And therefore, if your laptop goes off, for example, it doesn't affect any other person in the house. Everyone still be able to do what they want to do. So, but again, more than that also, blockchain is fast. It is secure. We'll look at that. It is transparent, very, very transparent, and it operates based on the peer-to-peer mechanism. So when I say peer-to-peer, now it's just like me and you, one-on-one. So one person to one person, one person to one person. So there is no centralization there where everybody's connecting to one central point. But in this case, we have to connect with different persons. So in the computer or in the network or in the internet, there's something we call nodes. Okay, this node can be your computer. This node can be your phone. As long as you have an address that can be accessed, you become a node on the network. So when you are a blockchain node, you can connect with other nodes in a peer-to-peer, way. So blockchain also is trusted. It is secured. Now, in the conventional networking system, there's a problem of trust. And this problem of trust basically comes from the challenge that, you don't trust the bank, you don't trust third parties to keep your information because there is no proof there's no guarantee rather, that your information is secure with them. Anything can happen, the bank can fold up tomorrow. Okay, so to solve that problem, blockchain brought in their own technology that we say it is trusted, it is decentralized, and it allows for the transfer of digital values, okay, in form of currency. And also not just that, also data. So now what is the blockchain? Let's look at more of what this blockchain entails. You can imagine the blockchain as a digital, database. Like I said earlier, like your Excel spreadsheet. So there are a lot of records there, all records. So it is digital, it is digitalized. And this database we're talking about is, it will spread across, a large number of computers. I mentioned them as nodes, so I just explained this step now. So it is rather important for us to know that if we have more nodes, more users, let me put it that way, on the blockchain network, that network is more secure. This is one advantage that we're going to be looking at even very shortly. So the more nodes you have, the more secure, the stronger that network is. And somebody will be asking why. Why do we have that? We'll explain that very briefly and very shortly. So that in the case that every time that there is the network makes an update can be an addition of digital records, or any kind of transactions that can take place. When there is an update to a database, everybody on that network automatically have the same copy. So one computer that goes off does not affect another. That's an advantage. Now, we also say that blockchain is secured with cryptography. Like we explained that from the beginning. So this makes it very, very highly secured and very practically impossible for hackers to make, changes to it. And that also we'll be looking into very soon. So, but the only way that you can make change, okay, to a blockchain network, or the only way a blockchain network can be hacked, is if those hackers can have access to more than half of the nodes that are on that network. And that is why we said earlier on that the more the nodes, the more secure the network is. Because if it is bigger, it gets bigger, it's difficult for hackers to have access. I mean, it's going to be a mundane task for somebody to want to have access to half of all the computers in the internet. That would be really, really a big task for them to do, something that practically doesn't look possible. So I've explained cryptography earlier on. So, but just for the purpose of understanding, we say cryptography refers to, secured information and communication techniques that is derived from mathematical concept. They are like a set of rules that is based on calculations, or we call them algorithms, as I explained earlier to us, that help to transform your messages in ways that are hard to decipher. So what are you trying to do? You are trying to hide your information. You hide it in such a way that is difficult. You hide it with an algorithm that is difficult for other people to know. Not just a password now. not just a code, but it's a mathematical equation that somebody needs to be able to solve. But only you know the solution to that equation. So others will try as hard as they can to solve that equation in order to have access to that data that is securely saved. So how does blockchain work in the case of Bitcoin? Since many of us know about Bitcoin. Now, we had said from the beginning that Bitcoin is one of the applications of blockchain, or one of the applications that run on a blockchain network. So, but this was basically the first cryptocurrency that was developed. And when I was researching on this some years ago, and then I was still trying to discover that how is it possible that somebody will do something as much as Bitcoin and that person's identity will not be known. This is a challenge for many people to grasp and to understand, and it begins to make the blockchain technology something that some people feel that this thing is not really real. Why? Because the person who invented Bitcoin is not known. They just call themselves, there's a name they call themselves, Satoshi Nakamoto. You can Google, you can search all of this and get more information about that. So the guys who made the Bitcoin, we don't know who they are. We don't know if they're a group of people. We don't know if they're a person. But, they just made this thing and put it there. The identity is not known. The identity is still hidden up till now. So, but let's just leave that now, go into the sole purpose of a Bitcoin. It acts as a store of value, like we said. It's digitalized, currency that is digitalized. So what you place on that currency is just the value. So, and then the Bitcoin allows for what we call one-on-one transactions. That's peer-to-peer transaction. Here, you don't need any third party. You don't need things like PayPal. You don't need your bank. So if I want to transact with you, for example, I just immediately initiate, my transaction with you. I don't need a third party. I don't need anybody. So in doing this, time is saved, and then the issue of not trusting third party will be removed. And also the cost also is reduced. When we use third party, it increases the cost of transaction. So that's one thing that Bitcoin is trying to solve. Then there's another thing that Bitcoin, also try to solve, which we call it the double spending problem. I think I have it in this next slide. It's called the double spending problem. And in this double spending problem, yeah, I have it here. Yeah, I saved it somewhere. Okay, I'll come back to that. But in this particular scenario, it's not possible, okay, for you to spend one money and still spend the same money again. Once it's spent, it's recorded. But these are still challenges in the banking system, even up to today, so that you don't spend like it's the money you have that you have. If, for example, on Bitcoin, you want to trade like $10, and if you don't have up to that $10, you have $5, it will be clear, it will be obvious to whoever is buying. But, this cannot be the case in the real world scenario that we use in the banking system and other areas. Okay. So we have mentioned this before that, there's no central location for Bitcoin. There's no central location for blockchain, but rather all of the information are distributed across a huge network of computers. So every new transaction that comes in is added to the database, and then all of the nodes that are on that network. So when I say node now, I'm referring to people who are registered to that blockchain network, or users. All of the users must agree to that transaction. And that's what we call consensus. So they must agree. And this is what makes blockchain really secure. So anytime you want to make a change to any record that has been stored, all of the people, up to half, so we call it majority of the people, must agree. There must be a consensus. Okay. If there is no consensus, no change can happen. And this makes blockchain very highly secure. So I'll try to move a little bit faster. I've already described what mining is. We said it's a process in which nodes verify transaction. That's what I just described right now. So once the nodes agree that this transaction is real, automatically it is added to the block, and then we call this block a blockchain. And then when it is added, it is placed below the previous blocks. And we said before that every block has a reference, which we call the hash. Okay, it has a hash. So they all have an address. So a block, you can refer to a block like a data. So don't be confused about it. A block can be a data that has been proved on the network. And then we said that for a transaction to be valid, the computers that are on the network must confirm that the person who holds that account or that amount of Bitcoin and wants to send it, the person that the money is there, the account rather is exact. Like the person wants to send $10, there has to be $10 there. And everybody on the network is responsible for confirming this so that they don't send a different money, and want to ensure that their money has not already been sent to someone else. So let's look at an example as we continue. We imagine, for example, in this case where we have here, somebody, Tom, wants to send $10 of Bitcoin to Ben, and Tom only has $5 worth of that Bitcoin in his wallet. Now, because Tom doesn't have the funds to send the $10 to Ben, the transaction would not be valid because he doesn't have that. And this is the responsibility of everybody on the network to confirm. So you're not just waiting for your bank, you're not waiting for somebody somewhere to make the confirmation for you. Every node on the network has this responsibility to ensure that the information that is given is accurate. So this transaction, we are not going to add it to the block or to the ledger. And this means that nobody can ever spend the same money twice, like I was trying to explain. So you can't spend the same money twice. And this, like I said, is a problem with the banking system and payment system that we have. Sometimes some of us have experienced a situation where you do a transaction twice, and then the bank have to hold your money for some time, and then before they refund the money after like 24 hours and things like that. But on the blockchain network, this kind of thing is not there. So again, we'll look at an analogy where we try to compare how data is stored and shared in a blockchain, in a standard non-blockchain environment, and then we try to compare it to how it is stored in the blockchain environment. Now, in the traditional system, how this thing works is just like when you have a Microsoft Office document and you want to share this document with your friend, like online, both of you cannot edit that document at the same time. The time where you are editing that document, your friend is locked out and your friend cannot make changes to it. And once you have finished making your own changes, you now send it to your friend to edit it further. Okay, now while your friend is editing this document, you cannot do anything. You just have to wait. But in the blockchain system, all users can view the changes while they are being made. So we call this transparency. Now, let's look at the advantages so that we'll quickly wrap up this session. There are 6 advantages and even more that I will quickly like to address in the era of blockchain technology, which might be of interest to every one of us, because I'm sure many people will be asking, okay, what is even the importance of this blockchain? One of the advantages is availability. Okay. It's availability. In this blockchain network, it's available to everyone who is on that network. It's not hidden. As long as you're on the blockchain network, you can see what is going on in that network. You can see, practically everything that happens on that network. And then secondly, there's also cost effectiveness. I explained this briefly, at the beginning, where you remove the cost of paying third party, people who will manage your transactions. In this case, you are doing your transactions straight with the person, whoever is involved. So it's a peer-to-peer, one-on-one transaction. There's no middleman in that place. So that simplifies business. Okay, and then there's also trust and transparency. I've explained trust and transparency to us. Everything is transparent. And then we said also from the beginning that it is unbreakable. We also described the decentralization of this blockchain from the beginning. So these are some of the key advantages. But how does this benefit large industries, organizations? One is that it removes the cost of third parties, which I said. And then payments and data are processed much quicker. There's no delay. In short, you can even immediately, instantly do some transactions without delay. It's a digital currency. There is no need for any third-party verification here. Like if you want to do your paper, sometimes it takes 2 days, sometimes it takes 3 days for some kind of transaction for banks and, to confirm this and that. So all of those delays are not there. Then again, database management between businesses is much easier if those businesses are on the blockchain network. And also, there's strong data protection. There is security in this because of the transparency. So as we see in this case, blockchain does not just benefit Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies alone. It also benefits many different industries. For example, you can look into health, you can look into politics. It can be used for electioneering system. Most of the problems that we have in our countries, like in places like Africa, where there's a lot of crisis, blockchain can solve that problem because everything is going to be transparent. And once information is added, nobody can edit it, nobody can modify it. And before you add the information or a data, it has to be confirmed by majority of the people. So for somebody to really find a way to disrupt that system, it looks practically impossible. So this is something that is coming up in the future for us and is going to shake the internet when many industries begin to embrace them and begin to use them. Today, we see some financial institutions already, they began to use this blockchain technology. And because of this importance that we have mentioned earlier on. So now for us who are Christians, how does this affect us? We need to have the knowledge, one, of what this blockchain is, like I've explained. And then after this teaching now, you can also go on and research areas where this can be applied to your own specific field. It's not just for businesses alone. It can apply to medicals. It can apply to any field that you come from. You can try to research ways where you can apply this technology to your own major field. So we listed some industries here where blockchain can be applied in cybersecurity, in education. I came across this website, they call it bitdegree.org. If you have time, you can go there. There are a lot of resources there for you that you can learn from. Then you can also use this blockchain for marketing and advertising. They're already using it for supply chain management. Like we mentioned, government systems, music and video sharing, e-commerce, for voting, that's for election. There's no way anybody can disrupt this thing. So it is secure, like we have said. So in the summary, this is the new technology that is coming up, and we need to be ready for it. We need to embrace it because it has advantages. And then there are also some concerns, by people regarding blockchain. But when you look at the advantages, you would want to really, really go with it. So I want to, stop at this point so that I know I've taken a lot of time trying to explain this, but I believe that somebody's interest must have been stimulated to try to learn more about this.
Today we are going to be looking into Series 5, and I just want to bring an addition to the lecture we already had as to artificial intelligence. I have questions that I would not be able to answer, but I will leave it as an open research for you. And I believe that it would bring you to a consciousness of the world that is coming to us soon. The questions are these: can we have conscious artificial intelligence soon? An artificial intelligence that will have a consciousness of its own. Because, it is true for us to see that the possibility of blockchain today was made possible because artificial intelligence is deployed. Artificial intelligence is simply an ability to use different algorithm learning to learn from past experiences and present experiences in order to forecast what is to happen in the future experiences. So then another question is, are there going to be mind-blowing sciences that would be unleashed? And we can't answer them right now. We can't fathom how they will be deployed. I was reading a material about a professor of Oxford University, Marcus du Sautoy. In one of his books, which was titled what we cannot know, an exploration of exploration at the edge of knowledge. He said something. He said, there are limits to what human can know. He said, there are limits to what we can know. But then he went further, asking this question as he was inspired. He said, how powerful science could be. And he started to ask that question. We don't know if there is already an alien, life out there that we can't see. He then asks again, we don't know what dark matter, when you say matter is a substance that occupies space, it says we don't know what dark matter is. In other words, there are dark happening in the realm of the spirit that we cannot know. So we can't even know what is about to happen with artificial intelligence in combination of blockchain and the big data. All of these are what is befalling on the world already. He also went further and said, we don't even know what the dark energy is. Do you know all these things are demonic? In other words, there are some things that is dark about science. There are some things that is dark about the world we live in. The reason why we need to seek knowledge, the reason why we need to appreciate when knowledge is come forward by the help and the leading of the Holy Spirit. I'm still talking about this professor. In one of his interviews, he was asked, do you believe in God? He simply answered, he said, God is something that cannot be defined. Yes, of the truth, God cannot be defined, but God can be known in the measure of what he wants us to know about him. And it can be known also by the promises that is coming back again. It can be known by his word, and we can trust that word. So don't be swayed away by answers from, doings of this world that can make you to begin to question the possibility of God. But he ended saying that consciousness of human has evolved over the millions of years of evolution. They believe that human being comes as a result of an evolution. But I begin to ask in that interview, where did you leave the mystery of the body, the soul, and the spirit? And the Bible says in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 1, 1 Corinthians chapter 1, from verse, let's go to chapter 2, because of our time. I will read from verse 6. The Bible says, yet among the mature we do impart wisdom, although it is not the wisdom of this age, or of the ruler of this age, who are doomed to pass away. But we impart a secret and hidden wisdom of God, which God decreed before the age of our glory. None of the ruler of this world, of this age, understood this, for if they had, they would have not crucified the Lord of glory. The thing is this, sciences understand that there are realm of the secret, but the ability to see the secret is by their dark eyes, is by their darkness operation. But here the Bible says that he left them to foolishness because they do not even understand that they are created by the same God who they are taunting out, who the masters of this world, demons, devil himself, had, honed their heart and begin to use it to develop these things. But these things cannot be stopped either, because the Bible made us to know that the time will come when these things would take over, everywhere. In the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 15, the Bible talks about the breath that will come upon the image. And the image is the artificial intelligence, is the robot that we see today. So this man needs to understand, and the rest of the science and all of us that is listening to me may need to understand that there is a mystery of the body, the spirit, and the soul that we inhabited. If that be the case, then I don't understand the case of evolution as to what evolved us. We are created by the hand of God and in his image. That's what the Bible says. But another question in my heart, as we round up and we are learning the mystery to this technology world that we live in, the question is, Is there a fast-track way to make machine conscious? Or will it have to go through the same extraordinary period of evolution to develop consciousness, just as scientists believe in evolution? Praise God. So that is a question to us. So, but then the wisdom in that question is likened to the fact that over the time, the artificial intelligence, that is the robot, would have a consciousness. Whatever that have a consciousness behave like a human, behave like it has a body, soul, and spirit, even though it may be a counterfeit one. Now imagine the blockchain working with artificial intelligence. That means that this robot will have the capacity of what will be immutable. Immutability means something that cannot be changed, something that cannot be erased. You know, demonic oppression is everywhere in Africa due to corruptions here and there. If artificial intelligence plus blockchain is deployed in Africa today, you will see there will be an end to corruption as to the capacity of man bringing that to action. There can be end to corruption deploying this technology. I tell you, because of the knowledge I found in it, and I know by the help of the Holy Spirit. So then that's why we also say that your business, if you have a business, there are not many businesses that are on blockchain today, and they are still secret. So, but one or two of them that we have gotten, we can share with us by the end of this month in a seminar, or what we can call just a online conference, in order for you to start to benefit in all of this. So again, I go back to that question. Will it take time? Of course, scientists believe evolution take over millions of years. It will take time, but my wisdom to us is that it will not be a million of years. It may not be a million of years. You know what we have now? We have what is called 5G, simply an architecture that carry the internet itself. Yeah. So in other words, the 100% speed that it comes with, 10 has not even been explored, and we already have robot behaving, moving very fast, even like a human. But by the time they will explore all of 5G, it will start moving that you will not even know they are robot. They will be in markets with you, supermarket, be in places with you, sit with you in the office. It may take time for you to know. I had a transaction with my bank here, Royal Bank of Canada, and then they spoke with me on phone, and they told me that there are certain things I had to come to the office to do with them. So when I got to the office, I tried to reference the person I spoke with. I forgot the name, but they told me, no, it's the robot that spoke with me. But come, let me tell you, it doesn't sound like a robot. It doesn't even have a discrete movement as it ought to be in terms of the sound. Everything is lining up as if it's a human that is talking. That is the new world we are moving into. Our technology is becoming more and more sophisticated. Artificial intelligence is almost creating its own subconsciousness already. I mean, and also becoming something that, is beyond us. I told you of a project of a small, just a simple robot I created with my student. By the time this student delivered the project and we switch it on, we begin to look at ourselves because we wanted it to make a search of a certain permutation, but it does beyond the permutation, and it also left us in a situation where we say, wow, what is this thing? We created something, but we see different other possibility. That is what I'm talking about. So artificial intelligence is becoming something huge. And all of these things is dependent on something very simple, which is called codes. So code is becoming more complex than it used to be before. And when Pastor was talking about action, he's talking about the code, the operation of the code, how the code moves from one token to another token. And this code does not just move endlessly, they move making decisions. So tell me, the subconsciousness is coming because humans make decisions too. And right now, we can't even rely on our colleagues to give us possibility of answers to to issues of life, as to problems, we now rely more on machines, software, artificial intelligence to give us a end result, because it's more trusted, it's becoming trusted than humans. That is the new world. Begin to fill in the gap yourself and imagine what is coming to the world soon. Hallelujah. You know, this same code is being used to develop emotional, and even, robot is becoming emotional. You could see that. You could see what we are talking about, where we are longing to be as a human. And you could see that God is also looking at us from heaven. Therefore, in conclusion, artificial intelligence, is it going to be good for our society? That is my question to you. The truth is that there is nothing created that is created by human that you cannot use it to your own advantages. So we can learn to use it to our own advantages, which is the reason why we discuss what we had today. But then on the other hand, we have to be conscious of God, who is the God over all, because those technology are becoming gods now. In your phone, there is an artificial intelligence there. You are stimulated by the same artificial intelligence, whereby you can't do without that phone often, whereby all of the apps you have on that phone are somehow taking part of you and is becoming spiritual. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, I know you will say something in your heart that God, help me to find knowledge from you and use these things to my advantages. And that is why we created this app. It's going to be, to the glory of God, a wonderful app. And I'm trusting God to put it on a blockchain. So that, let me tell you another advantage of blockchain. Whatever you put on blockchain, you can't change it. It's immutable. That's why it will destroy corruption in Africa. There's a criminal that was caught recently. I wonder why they expand the story of that man so much in Nigeria, where we have millions of criminals among our politicians. It's just that their own level of criminality is different from what this fellow was involved in. But criminal is a criminal. But where I'm going is this: they could not trace a lot of money that this guy had, siphoned and deluded people of. They were not able to trace all of it. Why? Because it transferred to a Bitcoin. Ethereum, that is what they call Ethereum. And this ETH, what happened is that it's just like one of the Bitcoin, whatever you convert to this digital currency, it is just going to be there until you change it yourself by converting it back to money. And Ethereum is even coming up in value now. And this is one of the business we want to introduce it to, if you would take it serious. I believe $50 is nothing to start with. And then when you try this, you begin to understand, even love technology to your advantage. But then in conclusion, solutions to all of these things we have been discussing from 4 series to 5 series is we should learn to pray in the Spirit. The Bible says men ought to always pray and not faint. We should learn to seek the knowledge of God to guide you and your family, because the Bible says that the man that does not have knowledge will perish. He said people perish for lack of knowledge. And that is why this portion of the 1 Corinthians is coming to us, chapter 2. He says that we should not behave like that of this world, which their wisdom is in what they see, is in what their father devil revealed to them. But our own wisdom is in Christ Jesus. And even there are more for us to know, and there are more that is awaiting us, even in the eternal glory. So having said this, I just want you to pray wherever you are and say, Father, teach me. I tell you, as a child of God and as a man of God, listen to me. Technology will rule the world. Technology will rule the world. And you know what that means? What I'm simply saying is that the mighty tool, the number one tool in the hands of the pit of hell, if you have been told about what is to happen, the number one tool is technology. If there's going to be a one word to be achievable, it's going to be technology. Like this blockchain can make it happen, whereby there are a chain of networks of transaction ledger, like he told you. These are transactions, and then you don't know who they are. And then these transactions, occur in a multiple time. No one is waiting for another. That is possible for a one word. Because the only reason why we don't have one word is the impossibility to do things simultaneously and to believe things simultaneously. But blockchain offer this. Hallelujah. And now imagine the combination of blockchain with the Internet of Things, with the Internet of People, with the 5G architecture or 6G that will be revealed also. They are already working on 6G, and that might be possible before 2030. Considering the combination of big data also, do you know what is coming? Do you know that it's just like the day of Noah, when warning was coming, but we felt that we know who is bringing the warning. And by this time, to the glory of God, you can't joke with God. And with my God, you should not joke with me, because you know that God has given us insight in the past, and you saw them coming to pass. He's also telling us that a time is coming. We have to start preparing, knowing that technology, so that we can block the negativity part of it, so that we can continue to allow the insight of God to lead us to how we need to use them, so that it doesn't cut us unaware and be a destruction for our life. In conclusion, again, the reason why we have that heart is to limit certain things that will expose us to destruction. I believe and I pray that this app will bless you and bless other people who will be making use of them. So in today's series, we'll bring it to an end. I want to believe God that He will still continue to lead us in this text series. But however, I would be waiting to receive from Him what He would want us to discuss by next week. And then if you want us to take the conference for the end of this month, we will fix the day for the last week of this month. Just write yes. Write yes. If we get more than 50% of you, I will come on the conference. I will teach us about more on blockchain and how you can make money through it. God bless you and bless all of you.